Good evening. This is attorney Vincent Davis, and this is The Secret, How to Fight CPS and Win. I'm joined by some very special guests tonight, Miss Cassandra Woodard. Hello, Miss Woodard. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. I'm also joined by Miss Georgette Truen, also known on social media as Miss G. Miss G, how are you this evening?
Just lovely.
Good. And I see we have a special guest here, Miss Anna Smith. Miss Smith, how are you this evening?
I'm good. I'm good. How are you?
Good. So, Miss Smith, before we get to you, let me ask Miss G and Miss Woodard, anything new going on today or anything you want me to cover during the show?
Yes. Well, okay, go, Cassandra. You have anything you want to say?
No. Well, I kind of wanted to talk about that video that I sent you. It was a woman on TikTok. I was watching TikTok, and I seen this woman, and she was telling her story about how she took her daughter to the hospital because she was having some problems, and come to find out, she was a social worker herself, and they were attacking her. And she told them that it was, like she was a social worker. She knew what she was talking about. And they still continued to threaten her and tell her that she was going to take her daughter from the hospital. And I just thought that was really shocking, like that she was a social worker herself and they were still trying to take her child. So now they're going against their own, I guess.
Okay, so we'll talk about the TikTok video. Miss G, did you have anything you wanted me to cover tonight?
Yes. I would like you to cover the appeal process, only because I'm getting a lot of calls of people that said to me, they filed for an appeal, and I asked them, when did you file for the appeal? And they don't know when they filed for the appeal. And they say maybe year 2021, 2022, and they don't know. And I think people don't understand in general that the appeal is several process. And maybe you can educate them, if you will.
Sure. One of the things that I'm always surprised about this, that things that I just assume that, I know like the back of my hand, most people don't know. And, sometimes, you get involved in something, you become so knowledgeable and expert at it. You just assume sometimes people know, and they really don't. They really don't. So I, a lot of times I feel like we're going back to basics, but that's probably a good thing. And, in that seminar that you wanted to do, Miss G, you were, I was thinking, well, maybe we should just go back to basics about evidence, back to basics about the law, back to basics about how to, do a case. I had a conversation this evening with a person who wanted to be a client, and everything that I told them, they'd ask me they told me the story, they asked me a question, I answer, and then they'd always disagree with my answer. And so finally I said, you called me, you thought I was an expert. Well, yes, I did, until, you started giving me answers that I didn't like. Didn't like my answers, apparently.
But not like anybody's answers that goes against what they think is right.
Right. And that's the key. That's the key. You think you know, or you think you realize what's going on, and you think you know how to win your case, and you think you know what's fair. And I'm not trying to degrade anyone, okay? But you don't know what you don't know. And I always use this example. I had to get a new transmission. Guess what I didn't know how to do? I didn't know how to change a transmission.
Yep.
I just don't have the knowledge and experience and education. Right? Anyway, Miss Smith, we're going to go back to you. First of all, I want to thank you for coming on the show tonight and sharing with our audience. This video will live forever on, 8 social media sites or platforms.
Awesome.
So, there's a chance that people that know you will see it. Those people that like you will see it. There'll be a chance that people that don't like you will see it.
Right.
Recently, we had a guest on, And I got a lot of negative comments by people who apparently knew the person, allegedly, and said the person just came on and told things that were not true. You know, I, of course, don't know who's telling the truth. I can only assume that people, when they come on, that they're going to tell us their story and they're going to be honest and truthful. I have that belief in people, but I can see it, people coming on and saying things that may not be true. But that's the way human beings are. Anyway, so Anna, what is your connection to CPS and what state and
I'm
county are you in?
okay. I'm in Nashville, Tennessee, and I was connected with CPS about 2.5 years ago with my own children. I had at the time my daughter was she turned one, and so she was 14 months, and I had a 5-year-old at the time as well, a little boy. And of course, someone called in on me. Like, that's what they do, the anonymous calls. So she came to my house and she wanted to set up an appointment. So then I didn't know my rights. I didn't know what I know now. If I would have known what I know now, things would not have happened the way they did. But she came to my house. She sat down and talked to me and my husband at the time. And she actually took my 5-year-old into a room by himself, shut the door, and talked to him. She asked him, did we whoop him, abuse him? Did your mom and dad do drugs? I mean, she actually said these things. My 5-year-old doesn't even know what drugs are, but she asked him. Came out of the room. Then she went through my house, went through my refrigerator, all that, which everything was fine, Then she asked me and my husband at the time, could we pass a drug test? I was honest with her from the start and told her, I might have marijuana in my system, but other than that, I can pass a drug test. So she had me and my husband pee in a cup and came back and let us know that she would be removing the kids. And I asked her, why are you removing my children? And she told me because we fell for marijuana. And at the time, I was told that no matter what, your kids would not be removed from marijuana, that they, might make you do whatever, but they won't be removed. My son, she actually told my 5-year-old son at the time that she was removing him, that he was going to go live with someone else for right now. He cried, and I've never seen it. Was horrible. My son did not understand, and this lady is just sitting there, stone faced. She didn't care. She had no heart at all. It took us. I want to say she was here a total of 6 hours because, they call around to find who can take your kids. And at that time, everyone that we brought, she even did a drug test, everything on them. But in the end, was like, nope, can't do it. Nope, can't do it. Every family member, for various reasons, on why they couldn't do it. It was 11 o'clock at night, and she finally let a distant cousin of mine get them that my kids didn't know. But she came back the very next day. We started the classes. We did everything because I told them, I was very cooperative with them the whole entire time. And they held my kids for 7 months. They did not allow me to see them. They put them in foster care. I mean, it was probably the worst thing I've ever went through. Within, I would say, 2 weeks, I was passing drug tests because I only had marijuana in my system. So my lawyer at the time went back to the judge and asked, since this is only happening, can she go ahead and, retrieve her kids back? Because my daughter was having a very hard time and was being passed around from different families because she just cried all day long and nobody could do anything, they couldn't settle her. Well, the judge actually was agreeing that the kids shouldn't have been removed to begin with for marijuana, and that he didn't see why they couldn't, be returned back home. And of course, CPS got on the stand and said that I did not, they just said all things, and the judge decided to rule with the CPS, and still all because of marijuana, not because I didn't have any food or because my kids were abused or anything else. They kept them in foster care. They kept my kids for 7 months. After I received my kids back, they closed the case. CPS has been at my house every 2 weeks to a month, knocking on my door. They just came to my house 3 weeks ago, knocking on my door, trying to get me to use the bathroom in a cup and come in my house. This has been an ongoing battle after I've received my kids. For 2.5 years, I have fought these people, and they won't stop. They will not. And at this point, I'm frustrated. I've done everything. You've already took my kids and traumatized them. I've done everything you've asked me to do. Why are you still knocking on my door trying to take my kids? I mean, I don't know what else to do. I mean, I really don't. I'm very frustrated. Like I said, this lady was just here 3 weeks ago knocking on my door. 3 weeks ago, talking about, can she come in? Can she meet the kids? Can I pass the drug test? Again. So I don't know. I came on the show because this is something very dear to me that I've been fighting. I feel like by myself. I really do. I feel like I'm alone in this because they can just get away. They can come in and legally kidnap your kids, and there's nothing you can do. You know, I couldn't see my kids. If I did, they met me at a park, and it had to be supervised. And all of this, like I said, is over marijuana at the time. But after I was passing drug tests with no marijuana, no nothing, for months and months, they still wouldn't give me my kids back. I done the classes, the random drug. I did everything they asked me to do, and they still wouldn't give me my kids back. It took me 6 to 8 months to get my kids back in my home, and they still kept the case open and still came to my house weekly and gave me drug tests after I got them back. So that's basically what I've been dealing with for over 2 years now. My daughter she just turned 4, and my son is about to be 9. And this happened when she was 14 months and he was 5, and I'm still dealing with it.
Well, may I ask you some questions, Anna?
Yes.
You know, at the time that this happened to you, was marijuana legal or illegal in the state of Tennessee?
It was illegal. It was illegal. It was. But like I said, she told me from the get-go when she knocked on my door, and I told her, like I said, I was honest. There's no reason to lying to them. You know what I mean? I was honest, and I told her. She said, if I had to take kids for marijuana, I'd be taking every kids around here. We don't care about marijuana. We're here for harder drugs. And I was like, okay, good. So I feel like that should have been established when you asked me and I was honest. You should have told me, hey, I'm going to take them for marijuana.
Do you think that she lied to you?
Yes, I feel like she lied to me. I feel like when she knocked on my door, I don't care what would have happened. She was going to find a reason to take my kids that day. I knew she was. When I opened that door, I knew looking at her, she was going to take my kids. I knew it.
Okay, so let me ask you something, Anna. This is an unfortunate experience that you and your children have gone through. It will affect them and you the rest of your life.
Yes.
Now, I want you to tell people what you learned from this experience, the top 3 things you've learned from this experience.
I'd say the number one thing that I learned about this more than anything is to know your rights. You don't think it can happen to you, but I promise you it can. Know your rights. If they come for some reason, don't open your door. Don't let them in. You get a lawyer, you get whatever you want. That's my number one thing is always know your rights and what you're allowed to do. Because like I said, if I would have known my rights then, this wouldn't have happened. I would say the second thing I learned is foster care, as they claim, is probably one of the worst things. You get really horrible, evil people in foster care. My kids were placed with someone for about a month, and I don't know if I'm allowed to say this. I'm not sure, but
no names.
No names. No names. It wasn't no names. I just didn't know if I was allowed to say what I was about to say.
Well, you can say anything else.
Okay.
You can say anything else you want.
Okay, my daughter was sexually abused while she was in foster care. So that was something that, and whenever we came to my worker about it and let her know what was going on, she basically told me that I didn't know what I was talking about, nothing. I came to her with as much proof as I could, living here and they're in foster care, but she wouldn't do it, nothing. They basically, because your kids were removed, they don't care what you say. You're a liar. You're whatever they think. They won't listen to you. They won't.
Well, wait a minute. How old was your daughter when this happened?
My daughter was 14 months when this happened. And I found out, let me kind of rewind a little bit. Whenever they were put into foster care and they were staying with the people, my son, who, like I told you, he was 5, he had turned 6 afterwards at the time, but he had come to me and told me that Mia cries and the man takes her into the room and locks the door and has to stay in there so he can get her to sleep. He's not allowed to go in there. First, I thought, that's a little weird, but I'm keeping an open mind with this. when I seen my daughter, I noticed something different about her. And when I went to change her diapers, she did not want me. But when her dad came near her, she freaked out. So when we first got them back, I took her to a doctor, took her to our pediatrician, and had them, look at her. And the pediatrician said that no, she was not. What's the word I'm looking for online? I'm trying to say it the right way. They believe she was touched. That's what she did, the pediatrician. So I got all the info that she gave me, and I asked her would she talk to my worker about this, and let them know that I'm not crazy. She said of course. So I told my worker, gave her the number to the doctor to to talk to her about everything. And I would say about 2 days later, I called my worker not my worker, I called my pediatrician to find out if she had spoke with them at all. And she let me know, she told them everything, all the findings, everything that she thought, and that she felt like my daughter was sexually touched. So I got in touch with my worker, who let me know that she was just a pediatrician. She didn't know what she was looking for. Basically, a doctor, even though she is just a pediatrician, but she did not want to go further with it. She didn't want to take my daughter anywhere else to get checked. It was just, hey, this didn't happen. And now my daughter is 4, and I would say for the first year and a half to 2 years of her being back, she has just now gotten comfortable when it comes to even me being naked, anything done. Like I said, she can't tell you, she's a baby. But I definitely, and I will always stand with that, something was done to my daughter that inappropriately, that shouldn't have been done. And I know that very well. Like I said, a pediatrician even, said it was true, but nobody would do anything about it. They got away with it. And that's how they got away with it. And no telling what kids are being there right now and who are also going through what my daughter went through. And because they're foster care, it's obviously couldn't happen.
Well, I don't know what the law and the timelines are in Tennessee, but if that happened in California, your daughter could still bring a case for sexual abuse, especially if you have a professional witness, a medical doctor, who says that she was sexually abused.
I'm glad you told me that. I'm not really sure about the law down here too much because honestly, I kind of let it go. And this is sad because I feel like I didn't fight for my daughter, but I let it go because I was so afraid that I would just open up CPS to come back in my life and take my kids. So that's why.
No. That doesn't open up a CPS case against you. There's a lawyer in Tennessee, and I can't think of her last name. She's very well known, kind of famous, representing people in CPS cases. Her name is Connie, I think it's Reguli, something like that. Have you heard of her?
I haven't.
So you might want to call her law office and see if she can help you or give you some referrals. So
I
that
definitely 100% will, and I appreciate that because, like I said, I try to put it behind me as of now because I feel like I'm alone in this, but I would definitely continue to fight. This would be something that I would love to take all the way to the top because, number one, CPS is definitely responsible for this, and it goes down the line. You know what I mean? And in the situation, but my son, he'll be 9 in November, and he's literally traumatized. Whenever she come and knocked on my door 3 weeks ago, they were here. My son knew automatically who she was because he seen the badge and me talking to her. And he just froze, and he ran to his room after I shut my door and quit talking to her. I was looking for him, and he was back in his room. And I'm like, what is wrong? What is wrong? And he was like, she's going to take, terrified that she was going to take. She was terrified. Absolutely. And I just don't know what to do with my kids are terrified of even PCS name. I mean, it's just horrible that a child is like that now because of this.
Well, I'm sorry that this has happened to you. I can only imagine, how you feel or what you thought and, being a parent. And these are probably, your most precious things in life for your children. And, unfortunately, when we take kids away from parents and place them in strange places, strange homes, we don't really know everything about these people that we're giving these children to. And I know in California and in, just in LA County where I am, there's always cases and allegations about foster parents
Mm.
allegedly abusing the child in some way,
Right.
even when you don't even think about it. I was talking about this on a show a couple weeks ago where some two brothers were in a foster home, and they were older, 10, 11, something like that. And when mom, who was my client, finally got them back and the case closed, they started disclosing abuse that they had suffered at the hands in the foster home, the foster father. Now, they haven't alleged sexual abuse, but they have alleged being physically abused and emotionally abused. And, while we were on the case, at least, because I'm not able to talk to the foster parents, but while we were on the case, it was always presented like the foster parents were angels taking care of the kids,
Yeah.
right? And then
Yes.
and then come to find out after the case is over and the kids start opening up, I'm just I want to say I'm shocked, but I'm not, because I've heard it so many times. So many
And I
times.
feel
I've been doing this. I've been a lawyer almost 36 years, and I've been doing these cases probably about 33 years.
oh wow.
So, I mean, the things that I've heard, and I don't know if they're true or not true, right? In a
Right.
lot of cases, I don't even actually speak to the people. But with the people that I have talked to, you know, I get the sense of that they're credible. And, they're just kind of horror stories about what happens to kids in foster homes or group homes. And it's like, as a society, um, sometimes I get the feeling that us involved in the system, we just like shrug our shoulders. Oh, well,
That's exactly. You're
yeah,
exactly right.
shit happens. Move on. That's the impression I get. And that's hard for me to, it would be hard for me to accept if I was the parent of a child that got abused. Hell, if my kids were abused like that, I don't know what I'd do. I'd go crazy.
You feel really helpless in that situation because they're already like you can't see your kids unless you like. I had to meet my kids at a park with the worker there because then I wasn't allowed to know where they were in foster care, what county, anything. So, and your kids are talking to you, and and there's nothing like you can. There's nothing you can. I mean, I would say as a mother, it's probably the worst feeling I've ever been through in my life, ever. And I feel so helpless for them. As a mother, you're supposed to protect your children. So you took my kids away from me to protect them and give them to someone else that's actually doing things to them that, I mean, no one's perfect, but I'm a good mother. I've always been a good mother. You couldn't find anything in the world to take them over. So you picked with me about what you wanted to take. And then when a judge even disagreed, you got on the stand and still came up with reasons why my child didn't need to be in my care. But I mean, it's hard because you feel like you're alone and you're screaming out and no one will listen to you. I mean, no one. And it feels like because they're CPS, like that's what kills me. Everybody's like, oh, they're just doing their job. No, they're not doing their job. If they were doing their job, there would be a lot less kids in the situations that they're in and a lot less parents.
Yeah. There was a comment that posted on one of the pages. Let me see if I can find it. It's from Margie Kendall Pinkston. She says Reguli, and that's how you spell Connie's last name, I guess. She is not an attorney now. So I don't know what that means, if she retired or whatever.
Okay.
But I have, I think she had a foundation, and she was trying to help people, parents, especially in Tennessee, fight CPS. So, see if that foundation is going. She may still have a telephone number, or an office or something. But, the impression I got, and I think we had her as a guest on one of the shows one time. She was really good people, I thought. I
Because
never personally met her, but from just talking to her and having her on the show, she was one of these, people that really cared about what was happening to these parents in Tennessee. So, I
'Cause
mean,
my biggest thing now that all this happened and my case, like I said, my case was closed, all of that, right? That happened 2.5, 3 years ago. But I guess my biggest fight now is what do I do now that they're literally at my door every 2 weeks to every month, knocking on it, telling me I need, I don't understand. Like, how are they getting away with this? How is this even allowed to be done? Like I said, this has happened every month, every couple of months, if not every month, every month. Like I said, the lady just came 2 weeks ago, knocking on my door again. I don't
I
know
don't
what
know.
to do.
I don't know what the statutes in your state allow and don't allow, but if you're in California, after so many times, I might suggest to you that you sue them to try to get a restraining order and a preliminary injunction against them to stop,
Oh,
harassing you.
okay.
The other thing is, and I don't know what the law is in Tennessee, but I know if you were in California, I'd tell you don't even answer the door. Don't even talk to them. For them to make you do something in California, they have to have a warrant, and they can
Yeah,
never get a warrant to make you talk to them. They can get a warrant to inspect your house. They can get a warrant to try to talk to your children. They can get a warrant to take your children, but you
right.
don't have to say anything to them ever.
And I want to make this as well, and to let you know as well while I'm telling you this. When after I said the case was closed, we went on with our lives. I would say about 6 to 8 months ago, when they knocked on my door, I actually let them in my house. Me and my husband both took another drug test. We let them run. This was about 8 months ago. Once again, there was absolutely nothing in my drug test. Nothing. I'm talking about nothing. My house was clean. My kids had everything, and he wrote it off and closed it. And this was 8 months ago. Once, because I was tired. At this point, you had been at my house knocking for over a year, every couple of months trying to find. So I let him go on in, even though I regretted it. But I knew at this point, there's nothing they're going to be able to, fight against me to be able to take them at this point. And maybe this will be the reason they'll leave me alone. But literally after she came and said, okay, you're fine, close the case, they were knocking on my door 2.5 weeks later, another worker asking the same thing that worker just did. They came here and did the drug test and came in and looked and talked to the kids. She was asking to do the exact same thing after I actually did, went ahead and complied with what they wanted, to hoping that would leave me alone. But within 2 weeks, they were back again.
Anna, Margie Pinkston has posted again the name of Connie's foundation or group, and I do believe they're on Facebook under this name, the Family Forward Project.
Okay, Family
You
Forward
you should
Project.
look them up and see what they can do to help you, if anything. I don't know that they can or can't,
Oh, no.
but I know that I always had the impression they were doing good things in Tennessee, which, as far as laws are concerned, isn't one of the more progressive states. I don't know why, but check them out. Check
I
Family
definitely
Forward.
will. I will. Thank you.
Sure. And Brian says, who's watching on YouTube, right to remain silent. As an American citizen, you have the right to remain silent whenever a government actor approaches you. Okay? So let's not waive that, thinking that you can outsmart or outtalk a social worker who receives training every month. They're highly trained people, so be careful of what you're trying to do. All
The
right.
last one that came 2.5 weeks ago told me, actually on my porch, she said, well, because I told her I refused. I said, if you want to take me to court, I'm not doing anything. I told her that. I was like, I don't know what else y'all are harassing me. She told me, well, when my supervisor asked me, I'll let her know that I talked with you and you're not high, you're not, you know what I mean? And she actually said that to me on my front porch, as if that was going to make me be like, oh, okay, well, come on in, to try to talk me in, I guess, to letting her to do that. But I just wanted to mention that as well. They will definitely try to outsmart you and get you to do things by what they say to you. I will definitely agree.
Here's Jenna on YouTube. She says, post a sign in front window that 24/7 surveillance and install cameras. Maybe they'll back off. You know, these cameras for outside, like the Ring cameras and all that, they're very inexpensive now, right?
Yeah.
Technology has become, relatively cheap compared to what it was, 5 years ago. So maybe you can get that type of system installed. I don't know what the laws are in Tennessee, but in California, you can install your video cameras, and as long as you have a sign or some type of notice to
Right.
those entering, hey,
Hmm.
I'm recording. I'm recording everything you're saying and doing.
That's a really good idea.
But Anna, remember this. I had an attorney, Jennifer Ani, that was on my show several times, and I do recommend the Ring camera on all my shows. But she did mention something that really stuck in my head. They always have a sign outside that says this house is 24-hour surveillance. And a lot of the people that watch the shows, they're really got the hang of it now. Make sure you have that sign. It's like $16 up to $34 on Amazon, depending on how big the sign you want to be, and whatever. I don't know. They have different styles of it. But seriously, do it. I'm not joking. Yeah.
Definitely.
Mhm.
I bought I should really get my Amazon affiliate link up, but I bought a doormat for my office, and the doormat says, "Come back when you have a warrant."
Mhm.
Don't just come knocking on my door.
Exactly.
Because I'm probably not going to answer it. I'm not going to talk to you. If you have a warrant, okay, let me know when you have the warrant.
There's a sign actually with 24-hour surveillance that says that come back when you have a warrant. So it's like you have the sign and then that's right next to it.
Brian was opining, I don't know if this is accurate or not, but he says in Texas, you don't even have to tell them one party consent.
Yeah, that's true in some states. He's
Right.
right.
I don't know if Texas is like that, but California is not like that. As a matter of fact, in California, if you do it without people's consent, it's a crime.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You can spend up to 1 year in jail, be fined, I think, $5,000 or $10,000 for every recording. Right, so you got to be careful what you do, especially in
Mhm.
California.
To make sure, yeah, to know your laws before you do anything. Definitely.
So Kinley's, oh yes, we need that doormat. Just go on Amazon and search doormat warrant or something like that. You need a warrant. It'll come up. I think I paid like less than $10 for it. Amazon sells everything now.
They do. That they do.
Here's Jenna has a more.
I love that message, Jenna. My doormat says fuck off. I love that. Jenna, that's right, baby. That's a good one.
I know their favorite line is always, "We have a call. We got a call. We have an anonymous call." I
Yeah.
know they told me one time they had 20 calls in one day. Really, you had 20 calls in one day? I mean, come on. How if, that obviously tells you that somebody, if it is true, that someone doesn't like me for whatever reason. So I doubt what they're saying is true. But that's what they always say. They got a call.
You know what? It's funny that you said that, Anna, because most of them that make the reports, if they do, are neighbors or somebody that they don't like you just because your color, that just because
Exactly.
your shape, or because the way you speak or whatever. It doesn't matter. Just to retaliate against you, they report you when they know you have kids. And
Exactly.
oftentimes, the
Exactly.
safest workers turn families against each other as well. They make them think that one of the family members reported them to Child Protective Services. And I tell people all the time, stop thinking that way. It's just the devil distracting you from the truth. That's all it is.
Yeah, the lady that came 2 weeks ago that knocked on my door told me that the call that she received, this is absolutely insane, just said my name and said drugs in a building with my name, nothing else, nothing about kids, no, you know what I mean? That's just absolutely insane to me. It doesn't even make any sense. She said it was literally one sentence. That's what the lady told me. It was one sentence on the anonymous call.
Mm.
Okay, well, Anna Smith, I want to thank you for joining us this evening. I really appreciate you sharing your story,
Thank you.
especially telling our audience what you've learned from your CPS experience. All right. Thank you, Anna.
Thank you so much, guys. Y'all have a good night.
Good night. Okay, ladies, we have a few more minutes. What else would we like to talk about this evening? You said something about appeals.
Yes, I need you to explain the appeal process, because oftentimes people think, okay, well, I got an appeal, but I ask them, when did you file for the appeal? I don't remember.
Okay, so I'm
They
just
need
gonna
to be.
I'm just gonna talk about appeals
Mhm.
specifically, but in general, there are two types of appeals. Okay, one is called an appeal, which is a matter of right, and the other one is called a writ, which is discretionary, up to the Court of Appeals whether they're going to look at your appeal and make a decision. Okay, so tonight we're just going to talk about the appeal, the one that's a matter of right in California. In all states, at some stage in the CPS process, you have the right to have an appeal. It's probably different from state to state, so consult your local attorney or your court appointed attorney. But in California, you can appeal after the disposition hearing. So there's the detention hearing, the jurisdictional hearing, and the detention. And if you don't, excuse me, the um, dispositional hearing. So if you don't like what happened at one of those three hearings, you can file a notice of appeal. You have 60 days to file a notice of appeal. Once you file the notice of appeal, something starts turning within the clerk's office. The clerk of the court where you filed the notice of appeal by law has to prepare what's called the appellate transcript. And in California, the appellate transcript is divided into two things. Number one, the court reporter's transcript, where the court reporter recorded everything that was said in court at all your hearings. And then the clerk's transcript, which is a copy of any document that was generated in your case and filed with the court. So it could be a minute order, it could be a social worker report, it could be exhibits that somebody presented to the court during the trial, any kind of document, a picture, or videotape. So that's collectively known as the transcript on appeal. Once the transcript on appeal is completed, and there are timelines for the clerk to do this, um, they are copied and put into volumes, paper volumes, and they are sent out to all of the attorneys on the case. Now, once you're the appellant's attorney and you receive this clerk's transcript, generally in California, you have about 30 days to file your appellate brief. Okay. And there are a lot of ins and outs on that because a lot of times court appointed appellate attorneys will write to you and tell you you don't really have an appeal. There's nothing really to appeal. Therefore, you have 30 days yourself. I'm notifying the court, and you have 30 days yourself to do your own brief. Every once in a while, I get a call from a client or a prospective client that says, my court appointed appellate attorney tells me I don't have an appeal. What should I do? Well, I say you have 30 days to file your own brief. Once your brief is filed, the other side, generally the social worker's attorney, and occasionally the minor's attorney, have 30 days to file their what's called respondent's brief or responsive brief. Okay. And they file that. Once that's filed, you as the appellant then have a very short amount of time, I think it's 2 weeks, to file what's called a reply brief. Okay. And then the reply brief is not mandatory. It's discretionary, and sometimes there's a strategy. Well, not sometimes, all the time, there's a strategy, and you may or may not want to file that reply brief. Once all the briefing is done by all the sides that are appearing in the appeal, the court will set, if you request it, oral argument. Now, that's not witnesses coming to testify. That's your attorney going to court and arguing their position as to why the case should be overturned or why the Court of Appeals should agree with the trial court case where you lost. All right. After the oral argument, the Court of Appeal, I think it's 90 days, has on average, I think, 90 days to issue their opinion. And their opinion has to be written. Sometimes it's published and becomes the law in California. And sometimes it's just private and it doesn't become law, but the court still makes a decision on your case. So if you ever hear of an attorney saying, "Oh, I got a published case," that means that it was published to the entire world, and now it's part of California law. Okay? Win or lose, whoever wins or lose at this stage has a further right to an appeal. So if you get something overturned, the county has the right to appeal. If you lose your appeal, you have a right to file a writ to the Supreme Court asking the Supreme Court to please take up this case and, make a decision. Sometimes the court says yes, but most of the time the court says no. Just by the sheer volume, they may not think it's an issue that they want to, get involved with. They may decide that, the Court of Appeals did a great job. Have I ever seen the Court of Appeals overturned by the Supreme Court? Yes, I have. Doesn't happen a lot, but it happens. So that's generally what happens. And the other thing is, if the Supreme Court of your state decides not to handle the case, or they do take on the case and make a decision, either one of those, you then have a right to file a writ of certiorari, writ of cert, to the United States Supreme Court. That's, the Supreme Court of the United States rarely takes on juvenile dependency cases, but they have in the past, over the decades that I've been doing this. Occasionally you do get a Supreme Court case on some, CPS case. It doesn't happen a lot, but it has happened. So that's the entire appellate process. Ms. G, I hope that answered your question?
Yes.
Okay. So obviously that's the 30,000-foot overview of the appellate process. It becomes a lot more involved and intricate at each stage. There's a lot that we could talk about, a lot of different strategies you can employ. But generally, that's the 30,000-foot overview of the appellate process.
And keep in mind also, guys, have a little notebook where you can write down the date that you filed the appeal, the date, the month, the month, the day, the year. And then when you hear back from them, be organized, because when you call an attorney's office, they ask you questions. I obviously ask you questions to know what's going on with your case. So when I ask you, when did you file for an appeal, and you don't know, and if you filed for the appeal a year ago and you're still waiting, there's a problem. Okay.
Deirdre Payne is watching on YouTube, and she says, my appellate attorney filed an extension to my brief and it was granted. Does that mean the appellate attorney will most likely file a brief? Yes, it does. What it means is, for whatever reason, and there are a lot of different reasons, the appellate attorney said, hey, justices of the appellate court, I can't turn in the brief when it's due. I need an extension. And in a lot of cases, the Court of Appeal says, yeah, that's fine. You need an extra 2 weeks or a month or whatever. Go ahead and, take that extension, and then your brief is just due on that new date. Deirdre or Ms. Payne, I don't think, from my experience, it says anything about the case one way or the other. It's just an extension for an attorney to act. That's all. And, those things are done frequently. I know I wouldn't say a lot, but my office has done that frequently, asked for extensions for many different reasons. Sometimes the appellate record is not complete, and we make a motion to augment the record. Sometimes, the person doing the brief wants more time or needs more time for whatever reason. They're stuck in a trial someplace. So it's done a lot. Okay. And it doesn't mean anything negative, in my opinion, about your appeal one way or the other. Okay. Ms. Pena, you said, can you answer my question? I think I have answered your question. And then you say the appellate attorney was granted 20 days. Yeah. So your brief will be due on that 20th day. Okay. Any other questions, Miss Woodard or Miss G?
No,
Okay.
not for me.
All right. Do you guys want to talk about anything specific tomorrow night?
Yeah, we'll talk about that after the show. I'll tell you what I have in mind. Okay.
Okay. All right. I want to thank everybody for watching and listening. And thank you, Miss G. Thank you, Miss Woodard, for being my special guest. And we'll see everyone tomorrow at 7 p.m. All righty. Good night.
Good night.